apologize because the unit broke, the heat. So we shut off the heat. But the fan seems to be working. And we can't shut the fan off. We've tried. So it's a little bit chilly in here. So I'm right under it, but we'll be okay. Maybe we'll, thank you. All right, tonight we're going to take a look at Oneg Shabbos. What's Oneg Shabbos? Who knows what Oneg Shabbos means? Oneg means to delight, to enjoy. We all think, what's Oneg Shabbos? We think of Oneg Shabbos, we think of maybe a nice cholent, and we think of some, I don't know, potato kugel, and a good meal, and nice schluff, good rest. And that is no question, that is part of Oneg Shabbos, it's true. But we'll see tonight that there is far, far greater meaning into Oneg Shabbos. So, in order for us to truly appreciate this, we need to have a slight review, especially for those who might not have been here. So it might be, we'll go a little bit faster than we ordinarily would, but we'll see what we can do. So the Shabbos, we've been talking about the Shabbos because this is the fourth commandment. Hopefully we'll have one more class on the Shabbos. Following that, we'll get to the fifth commandment. Then we'll probably get into Purim and maybe even Pesach, and we'll see where we go, right? So Oneg Shabbos, let's take a look at the sanctity of Shabbos. The mitzvah, first mitzvah that we're introduced to in regard to Shabbos is Zachar es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsha. Remember the Shabbos day, and we should sanctify it. How do we sanctify it? Well, we make Kiddush. But what is that all about? What is the sanctity of this day of Shabbos? So we saw that Shabbos is called the Tachlis. Tachlis means, what's Tachlis? The purpose, the goal, the reason for existence. Shabbos is referred to as the Tachlis. How do we understand that? In what way is Shabbos the Tachlis? Shabbos is a magnificent mitzvah, there's no question. Very important mitzvah. But how is it the Tachlis of creation, the goal, the purpose of creation? So we saw, and again, we're not going to go into how we derive this because that we did the first 2 weeks we spent on the Shabbos. The Shabbos is sacred. It says that Vayavarach Elokim b'yom Shabbos v'yakadosh oseh. What I'm quoting is from the fourth commandment. God blessed the Sabbath day and he sanctified it. How did he bless it? By sanctifying it. How is it sanctified? So we saw that the light of creation, not the light from the sun, that didn't come into existence until which day? Fourth day. Man was a sixth. Fourth day were the luminaries, okay? The sun. So what light existed when God said on the first day, Yehi, let there be light? It was a spiritual light. It was the essence of light, not the light that is produced by the sun. This light was the light of creation. It is a light which is an energy which not only provides energy for matter, but for every spiritual. It's the life force. It's what keeps the atoms moving back and forth, what keeps the electrons, whatever, where it is this all comes from. It is that light. It is the light which is the light of the human soul. And this light of creation was placed within this seventh day, this frame of time that God declared to be the Shabbos. Shabbos is imbued with this sacred light that God brought into existence on the first day. What happened when God created the sun and there was light coming from the sun? God took that light and he concealed it. Where is it? It's found within the Torah itself, and it's found within the Shabbos. That is the sanctity of Shabbos. Now we can comprehend why Shabbos is referred to as a facsimile of Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, and we are taught that God blessed the seventh day, in which there was a double portion of man, the manna that fell. He sanctified the seventh day that it didn't fall on the Shabbos itself. What does that have to do with the Shabbos? The mun was for a 40-year period. The Shabbos is eternal. The answer is that the mun was a spiritual food. It was an actual food that they ate. But when they digested it, there was no waste, and it had an incredible impact upon them. They say that the mun is the food of angels. Angels don't eat. It means that contained within the mun, as sages explain, was these spiritual properties enabling man to ascend. Yes.
So if the Israel were eating that 40 years, why were they so miserable?
Well, they weren't so miserable, just a little bit.
Well, they complained a lot.
They did. But they said if you look through, it's true, you look through the Torah, now that is an excellent point. And we once expounded upon this for quite a while. So I'll just give you the short version, just an excellent point. And that is one of the proofs that they bring to those who question and say, how do you know that your Torah is authentic? How do you know it came from God at Sinai? I mean, one answer is because if it came from man, human beings, if it came from Moses and the Jewish people, do you think they would have a book that would be filled with their iniquities and their flaws? And like you said, they're complaining and complaining. Why is it here? It's here because it was given to us by God that we should learn about human behavior and about the challenges that confront us. Okay? We were in the desert for how many years? 40. How many times in the Torah do we find that indeed we complained? You know how many times? 10. That's not bad. 40 years. My wife tells me that I complain more than 10 times a day. 10 times in 40 years? That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So your question is, well, but they ate the mun and the mun was a spiritual food. You're right. And their complaints were not, hey, I want this, hey, I want that. It's much deeper when you have to examine each one. Okay, so this mun was something spiritual, and the Shabbos itself is blessed with the spirituality of the mun, Garden of Eden. In the Zmiras of Shabbos, we speak about that this day also is a day which gives us a glimpse and a view of the Messianic era and the world to come, because this is a day which is imbued with the spiritual light. Magnificent. This is the sanctity of Shabbos. Man is created to be the vessel to receive the gifts from God. In this case, the gift is that of the Shabbos. As the Talmud says, God told Moshe, I have a magnificent gift that is available for the children of Israel. They can have this gift. It is the Shabbos. How is it a gift? Because it enables us to receive this spirituality. How do we receive it? In our preparation for the Shabbos. Preparation for the Shabbos means the physical preparation, the cleaning, the bathing, the showering, the dressing. See that we're appropriate as we're going to greet the Shabbos queen. And also, more importantly, it means to have our mind focused on the Shabbos, which means, as we explained, that we're focused on the Creator, thinking about God. We'll expound on that a little more tonight. That's how we prepare for Shabbos. The more we're prepared, the greater we are a vessel to receive. Shabbos is a bridge, the bridge that God created to connect the spiritual with the physical. We're in a physical world, a world of matter, a world of distractions and diversions, and God has the spiritual blessings for us. How can the spiritual find its place within the physical? The answer is there's connective tissue, and that is Shabbos. Okay, so this is the description of the sanctity of Shabbos. That's what we did the first week. Okay, well, it took us around an hour. We just did it in 7 weeks. Second week, Shabbos. Shabbos means to rest, to cease. What are we resting? How do we rest? What does that mean? It means that as the Torah tells us, there's two mitzvahs in the 10 Commandments regarding Shabbos. Remember it and proclaim its sanctity. And we should refrain from malacha. What is malacha? So malacha is not work. Work in Hebrew is avodah. Right. Avodah. You said avodah? You got it right. You were in Israel. Very good. So that is work. That means exertion of energy. Work. That's not prohibited on Shabbos. As we mentioned, I work on Shabbos. Women who have company, you put in, you work harder on a Friday night when you're serving 20, 30 people or whatever than maybe you do during the week. So what is malacha? Malacha, we presented the definition. Malacha is any creative activity by which man demonstrates his control or mastery over his environment. Repeat that. Any creative activity in thoughtfulness by which man demonstrates his control or mastery over his environment. Therefore, if I want to have food coming out of the ground, that's a wonderful improvement. So what do I need to do? I need to plow. I need to make the earth suitable. That's a creative activity showing that I'm the master. Then I'm going to sow, I'm going to put a seed in. Then I'm going to, when it grows, I'm going to reap. Then I'm going to gather it together. After I gather it together, I'm going to take it and I'm going to select and winnow to remove whatever impurities are there, dirt, whatever it might be. Eventually, I'm going to remove the seeds and the kernels from the wheat and the barley and the oats and whatever, and then I'm going to grind them. After I grind them, so now I have flour. Then I'm going to put in water and I'm going to knead them, kneading. And then I'm going to take the kneaded dough and I'm going to bake it. These are the first 10 or 11 biblically prohibited activities on Shabbos. I'm the master. Look what I can do. I'm the master. I can make this come out of the ground. Shabbos, we are told, refrain, rest. Rest doesn't mean sleeping. Person sleeps 24 hours on Shabbos, we're missing the point. We should refrain from malacha, these creative activities that suggest that we are the masters of our environment. And by our refraining, we are testifying who is the true master. I'm not the master. 6 days, God says, I can work and I can do all my malacha. 6 days, fine, go ahead, be the master. But do not confuse yourself and think that indeed I am the master. We're going to take 1 day a week in which we're going to say, I shall declare and proclaim who the true master is. That is the creator. Talmud says, one who respects and reveres the Shabbos becomes a partner in creation with God. We become his partner. So we saw the question, how can we become a partner in something that happened thousands of years ago? I can understand a person respects and reveres the Shabbos. Wonderful, beautiful, get a lot of reward, whatever it is. But how do you become a partner in something that's over? It's done with, it's finished. It happened 5,785 years ago. Now I'm a partner? What does that mean? So we saw that when the Torah refers to creation, it doesn't say b'sheshus yomim, that God created the world in 6 days, but it says sheshus yomim. God created the world 6 days, meaning that the world was created with an expiration date. God created this universe to last 6 days. And then it can be renewed. How? By the Shabbos. So when we revere and respect The Shabbos, you know what we're doing? We are renewing God's creation. And that's how we become partners. Yes, God, you made it initially from nothing 5,785 years ago. But I became a partner because it should have stopped, and I gave it the energy. The Shabbos that I am revering energizes, becomes the spirit, not just for me, but for the next 6 days. As it states, if there would not be one Jew on the face of the earth observing and respecting the Shabbos, the world would cease to exist. That's something.
It just dawned on me where they were Jews. Why didn't they just?
Because you always had those, even though they weren't officially Jewish, you always had those who were revering and respecting God's Shabbos. Adam, when God put him in the Garden of Eden, la'avda u'lashamra, to work it and to safeguard it. What work did he have to do? He didn't have to do any work. Everything was growing by itself. Commentaries say God taught him about the Shabbos. So Adam knew the Shabbos. They were righteous in every generation who knew about it. Were they obligated? No, we didn't become obligated till we stood at Sinai and accepted. Abraham knew about the Shabbos. Yitzchak, Yaakov, their sons, they all knew about the Shabbos, and they respected it as they should. Okay. We're a partner in creation because of the 6 days. When we make Kiddush Friday night, we say Zeichel Emancipation, Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim. That we're saying, God, you sanctified this Shabbos day, and we remember your creation. We remember the Exodus. What do those two things have to do with the Shabbos? Perfect, because creation and the Exodus are what demonstrate to humanity for all generations that God is not just the creator, he is in exclusive control. That's what the Exodus of Egypt is all about. That's why it is so fundamental. That's why it fills our homes with the Pesach Seder. Because the Exodus of Egypt, God demonstrated he's not just a creator. Okay, he created, but maybe he programmed the world and now you're on your own. After all, we have free will. God said, let me show you Paro and Paros of the world throughout all generations. You don't know that I exist? I exist. I am in control. There's no such thing as nature. I can take fire and water and have them work together in perfect harmony. I am in control of the wind. I'm in control of the planets. I'm in control of the earth, the water, life, everything. And not only that, anything I want will be done. And not only that, there is no other force that can interfere. There exists nothing else. That's what we see from the Exodus. That's why the very first commandment of the 10 commandments, God said, I'm the Lord your God who not created the world, but know who I am. I'm in control. That when we make Kiddush, that's what we're saying. God, you're in control. During the week, yeah, I look like I'm the master, but here's the truth. You're the master. We also learned that whereas, how do we know which activities fall into the category of a malacha? So the Talmud says from the juxtaposition of the verses in the book of Exodus, we see the creative activities necessary to build the tabernacle, portable temple. Those are the activities that we are to refrain from on the Shabbos. What does one have to do with the other? The answer is we have a physical temple in Jerusalem. Physical temple requires our going to it. It doesn't come to us. Physical temple is made of matter and it can be destroyed, which it was, except for the Western Wall. However, the Shabbos is also God's temple. It is the temple that he placed within the framework of time. Time, we learned, is a creation, not just a means of measuring one period to another. God created sections, which we'll call time, and in this section, he imbued it with these properties. That section of time that we call the seventh day, Shabbos, is imbued with this sanctity of the light of creation and all that's available. And it is a temple found within time. And this temple can never be destroyed. It's not made of matter. And we don't have to go to it. It comes to us. That is the incredible sacred Shabbos. What do we mean when we say a temple? What defines something as a temple? A temple means this is the divine domain. This is where the presence of God can be found as nowhere else. God's presence fills the entire universe. Kavode mole oila. God's glory and his presence fills everything. However, if you want to find the most intense, concentrated place where one can sense it more easily, that's the temple. Okay, so now we just reviewed. Now we're ready to understand Oneg Shabbos. So Oneg is translated as to delight, to rejoice, and Oneg. So after this introduction, and we see the incredible sanctity of this temple and all the spirituality. So we delight with this sacred Shabbos by eating and sleeping. How do we understand that? So there's a very, very important verse, chapter 58 in Isaiah. You don't have Isaiah there, I do. So let me read this to you. Chapter 58, verse 13. Let's listen to what the prophet says. If you restrain your foot because it is the Sabbath, refrain from accomplishing your own needs on my holy day. If you proclaim the Sabbath a delight, an oneg, and the holy day of God is honored, and you honor it by not engaging in your own affairs, from seeking your own needs, or discussing the forbidden, then you will delight in Hashem, and I will mount you astride the heights of the world. I will provide you the heritage of your forefather Jacob, for the mouth of God has spoken. This is the verse in which it says, V'korosa la Shabbos oneg. You shall declare the Shabbos as an oneg. The concept of oneg Shabbos is derived from this verse, 58:13. We should go to football games and hold up the sign, Isaiah 58:13. The Korosa la Shabbos oneg. It is a delight. Okay, but notice, first the prophet says, he starts from one point and he's working his way up. It's a crescendo. Restrain your foot because it's a Sabbath, meaning don't go wherever you want to go. There are places that I want you to go. That's number one. Refrain from accomplishing your own needs on my holy day. Don't think about what we need. This is God's holy day. Number three, if you proclaim the Sabbath day a delight, then the third thing is, as we're ascending, is to proclaim it a delight. That means after we are refraining from accomplishing our own, we put aside our own needs, where we want to go, we'll focus on God's holy day. In addition to that, proclaim it as a delight, an oneg. How do we understand this? First we refrain, then we achieve an oneg, and we know that Shabbos is a sample of the world to come. Be'ein olam haba. It's a sample of the world to come. What? This world to come is what? What is the oneg in the world to come? Obviously, they must be in 10. Another question. Let's go to page 491. Start with verse 13 on page 491. Do we all have it? Hannah, want to read for us, please?
You shall speak to the children of Israel, saying, However, you must observe my Sabbaths, for it is a sign between me and you for your generations to know that I am Hashem, who makes you holy.
Okay. So God is telling Moshe, speak to us and tell us about the Shabbos. What is it about the Shabbos? It's a sign. Oshi, it's a sign between me, God, and you for all generations. That with this Shabbos, this is a sign that we'll know that He is Hashem who makes us holy. Now let's go to verse 17. Turn the page.
Between me and the children of Israel, it is a sign forever that in a 6-day period Hashem made heaven and earth. And on the 7th day, he rested and was refreshed.
So it says twice that it is a sign. What is it a sign? What is a sign? The sign lets you know about something, right? You want to know where to get a haircut? You look for a barber pole. Okay. You want to know, do they still have barber poles? No. Yeah, you look for a sign and you know where you're going, whatever, you see what it is. What is this a sign of? What? It's a sign between me and God. How? In addition, it says that in 17, that on the 7th day, God rested and was refreshed. God is refreshed. God gets refreshed. So we have another verse from Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 28, in which he says, did you not know? Did you not hear? Hashem is the eternal God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not weary. He does not tire. There is no calculating his understanding. God doesn't get tired. He doesn't get weary. That's a human condition. There are no human conditions to God. So what does it mean? God rested and God is refreshed. So some say, well, he's using terminology referring to him so that we'll understand how important it is for us. But still, the terminology is it's inconsistent. How do we understand that? Let's go, I didn't write down the page, to the book of Numbers, chapter 10. I have to write the page down. I'm a bad. Here we go. 783, page 783. Chapter 10, verse 10.
On a day of your gladness and on your festivals and on your new moon, you shall sound the trumpets over your elevation offerings and over your peace offerings. And they shall be a remembrance for you before your God. I am Hashem, your God.
So they had these trumpets in the temple and the tabernacle, and on Rosh Chodesh and on Yom Tif, when they brought offerings, so they were blown. They would blow these trumpets. So it tells us on your festivals and on your new moons. What is the day of gladness? In Hebrew, it's Biyom Simchaschem, your days of Simcha, your days of rejoicing. What does that refer to? So in the Sifri, the Medrash, it says it refers to Shabbos. Shabbos also, the Kahanim in the temple would blow these trumpets by the offerings. So the question is, there's no mitzvah of Simcha on Shabbos. Why would Shabbos be referred to as Yom Simchaschem, your day of rejoicing? There's no, when there is a mitzvah to rejoice? On Yom Tif. On Yom Tif, there's a biblical mitzvah that says, V'samachta v'chagecha, rejoice in your festival. But Shabbos, there's no mitzvah of rejoicing. So why is it referred to as Yom Simchaschem? All right, so now let's go to our siddur. Okay, I didn't bring enough because I was lazy, but I figured we could. It was heavy. I didn't have my cart. It was heavy. So we have what's called the silent prayer. We call it Shemona Esrei. Shemona Esrei means 18. Then our sages added another one, so there's actually 19. There are 19 expressions of prayer unto God. We say this, well, I'll tell you what page. We say this with our feet together, and we should say it quietly. We have an audience with our Creator. We're speaking to God. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you. We're speaking to God direct. Every single day, evening, our day begins at night. Evening, morning, and afternoon. We have Myra prayers, Shacharis prayers, Mincha prayers, 3 times a day. Those prayers of Shmoneh Esrei is uniform. They're identical. Sometimes there are certain occasions we add this, Mike, we add that, but they are identical. On Yom Tif, what is the special tefillah on Yom Tif? Turn to page 660. Please. I should say please. Don't. I ask your forgiveness. Page 661. Okay. If you notice, look at the heading. The heading says Shmoneh Esrei for the festivals. That means whether it's Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, it is virtually identical. They all have the same thing. They all have Ata v'chartanu on page 663. You have chosen us. And then they have on page 665, you gave us, and we'll mention the particular holiday that's occurring. But everything else is identical. So there is a uniform Shmoneh Esrei during the week and on Yom Tov. The exception is Shabbos. Let's see. Let's turn to page 341 in our city. Is that what you have? That's
By
what
the
you
time
want.
we find the thing, going through another.
341, Friday night. Every Shmoneh Esrei begins with the same introduction. And then, what do we say Friday night? Atoki dashdes es yom hashvil shmecha. You want to read that, please, Tana? In English?
You sanctified the 7th day for your namesake, the conclusion of the creation of heaven and earth.
Now, he says conclusion in Hebrew, it's tachlis. See the Hebrew? Tachlis. Shabbos is the tachlis. Go ahead.
Of all days you blessed it, and of all seasons you sanctified it. And so it is written in your Torah.
Okay, then it brings the verses. So it begins the Friday night, Shabbos, tefillah, prayer begins. You sanctified the 7th day. Okay, let's go to page 425 and see what do we say Shabbos morning.
Moses rejoiced in the gift of his portion, that you called him a faithful servant, a crown of splendor. You placed on his head when he stood before you on Mount Sinai. He brought down 2 stone tablets in his hand, on which is inscribed the observance of the Sabbath.
And
So
then
it is written.
And then he brings the verses and everything. Okay, so this is different, totally different. Here it speaks about Moshe rejoicing in the gift of his portion. What gift is that? What was that gift? So it says, I don't know if he says it on the bottom, but in the Medrash it says that when Moshe, who was raised in the palace of Paro, remember, because Paro's daughter took him with them, he saw Jewish people working tirelessly, they constantly, 7 days a week. So he went to Paro and he said, you know, these people will be more productive if they had a day off. Everybody needs a day off. Give them 1 day off. So Paro consulted with some of his wise men, and they said, yes, no question, the person needs to be refreshed. So he said to Moses, this little boy, what day do you suggest? Now Moshe, although he was raised by Paro's daughter, who really raised him and educated him? His mother. That's right, Yocheved. And he knew who he was. He knew his father was Amram. So Moshe, his ulterior plan was they shouldn't have to work on Shabbos. So he said to Paro, he said, in my lessons in astrology, I learned that the planet Saturn has its greatest influence on human behavior on the seventh day, which is why we call the seventh day Saturday. That's where it comes from, Saturday, from Saturn. And the power of Saturn is to enable a person to refresh, to rest and refresh. Therefore, it makes sense that you should give him a holiday on Saturday. Paro agreed. Yismach Moshe rejoiced in the gift of this portion. That was Moshe's plan, and now they weren't obligated to work. Now, that doesn't mean that they'll observe the Shabbos then, whatever they did, but they weren't obligated to function as slaves. That is the second, the rejoicing. First, we find Friday night we speak about the sanctification. Now, Shabbos morning, the rejoicing. What do we say at Mincha? The Musaf service always refers to the additional sacrifice that was brought. What do we say at Mincha? Let's go to 517.
Who sustains the living with kindness?
Oh, they're on the top, and that's part of every day. We want the unique part of Shabbos, holiness of the day. See it?
Yep.
Everybody see on 517, just before, right, holiness of the day.
You are one, and your name is one, and who is like your people Israel? One nation on earth, the splendor of greatness and the crown of salvation. The key of contentment and holiness have you given to your people. Abraham would rejoice, Isaac would exult, Jacob and his children would rest on it. A rest of love and magnanimity, a rest of truth and faith, a rest of peace and serenity and tranquility and security, a perfect rest in which you find favor. May your children recognize and know that from you comes their rest, and through their rest they will sanctify your name.
Okay, this is all about the oneness. Talk about the oneness. And from here, we clearly see that this element of rest does not mean our just eating and sleeping and drinking, because if that's the case, how can we say it's a rest of truth? That's the truth? Eating and drinking? A rest of faith, peace, serenity? What is this rest all about? So let me share with you from the Abu Raham and others. When a man and woman get married in Judaism, so there is a process. Process is, even if it's simple, process is we should have at least a minyan, 10 men, over bar mitzvah. You can have as many as you want, you have as many women as you want, but there should be at least 10 men. There have to be 2 witnesses. And there are 3 stages to Jewish marriage. Now, today, we do them all at one time. And one period for centuries, they weren't done at one time. The first is called Kiddushin, which means sanctity. The word Kiddush, Kadosh, 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 Kaddish, Kiddushin, the sanctification. That is when the groom, in the presence of witnesses, is going to place the ring on his bride's finger, and he declares that he is doing this for the purpose of marriage. Harei at mekudeshes li. Behold, you are sanctified unto me. Marriage is not just a contractual relationship, it is an act of sanctification. That is Kiddushin. Then we have the second part, which is called Nisuin. What is Nisuin? Nisuin is when the bride enters the groom's domain. What is that? That's the chuppah. When we get married, the chuppah is the imaginary domain. That's why a chuppah has to have a roof and it's got to have some sides, at least the poles, so it looks like an imaginary domain of the groom. That's why the groom should always go down first. and the bride comes last. And many places they're very particular that if there are others standing, which usually you have, they're not right under the chuppah, stand by the side a little bit. And that's why the last one to come down is the bride. Not so we can all say, here comes the bride or whatever, but the last one to come down is the bride. And there is a custom that the groom, if he is not facing the bride, will turn around and walk towards his bride to escort her to the chuppah. What's that all about? That he is bringing her into his domain. If her parents are escorting her, they are escorting her to this domain. That is the chuppah. Then, we're still not finished. Then, we have, after the chuppah, we have what's called yichud. Yichud means alone. The privacy of the bride and groom as husband and wife. They are escorted by witnesses and everyone else in the festivities, which they'll go into a bridal room or whatever, and we keep them in there for around 8 minutes. Let them have a bite to eat, talk to each other, get to know each other. And after that, that's it. They are completely, totally, thoroughly married. Okay, from that point on, he never has to make another decision. Yeah. All done. Okay? This, if he's lucky then, this is what our Shabbos prayers are all about. Friday night, Atokidashta, God, you sanctify. You sanctified us with the Shabbos. That's Kedusha. First stage of this bond of marriage. Shabbos day is the rejoicing. Because now, fine, gave her a ring. Today we do it at one time. They used to do the Kedushin. She's considered married, but they're not allowed to live together until they have the Nisuin, until she enters his domain. Sometimes it was usually for 10 months to a year. When she now comes into the groom's domain, she enters now, she's coming to be with him. Even if there are other people there, she's coming now to join him in his life and to see that she can guide him and direct him. The groom rejoices. That's when you rejoice. And then the third stage is Amen, in which we say, God, you are one, your people are one. There is a oneness. We've become one. That's the privacy. The equation for a Jewish marriage is 1 + 1 equals 1. Because it's a joining and a union of the souls. That's what's taking place. Union of the souls, in which we create a new entity of one new unit. This is what's happening on Shabbos. Shabbos is the sign. He said, what is the sign? What sign do we say? It's a sign between me and you, that I am your God and everything. What kind of a sign? It's a sign of the bond and love that God has for us, and we strive to attain for God. That's what Shabbos is. And Shabbos, we said, is the temple in time. What's the temple? It's God's divine domain. It comes to us, and we are entering into God's domain. His chuppah. Shabbos is like a chuppah. This, now we're getting a new perspective of Shabbos. Shabbos is like a marriage between the human being, Jew, the Jewish soul, and our Creator. That's what Shabbos is. Now we can understand why Shabbos is a tachlis. It is the goal and purpose of creation. God created holy, pure souls. They say that the souls come into existence by God's kisei hakavod, his throne of glory, which is, of course, just an example. Doesn't have an actual throne. These souls are holy and pure. God sends these souls to this world, to a material world, a world that is corrupt. Because it consists of matter, and because it consists of inclinations to do things that are not always consistent with the will of God, it is a world that is filled with impurity. How can the holy human soul retain its purity when we are placed in an arena, in a realm of such impurity? How can one stay healthy when we are surrounded by all this bacteria? That's what it's all about. And therefore, God gave us Shabbos. Shabbos is the day of bonding and experiencing and sensing that connection, that love with God. That's what Shabbos is. And it functions as an antibiotic in which it removes the bacteria of all these impurities. If we experience and sense a Shabbos, it helps us during the coming week when we're subjected to all this illness. That's what Shabbos does. By refraining the malachas, by refraining from these activities that confuse us and lead us to assume that we're in control, by refraining, that enables us to enjoy, have the oneg. What is the oneg? It's not the sleeping and eating. The oneg is delighting in the union of the soul, not just our souls, the human being, body and soul, with God. What is oneg Shabbos? We ask what? This is what it is. Isaiah tells us that after you refrain, after everything, then we achieve the oneg. What is the oneg? The oneg is indeed a sample of the world to come. The oneg is experiencing the messianic era, the spiritual month, all of this. Because the oneg means we are delighting in our relationship, our connection with God. That's what Shabbos is. It's a day of incredible connection. That's it. Every yontif is, with its own special way. Shabbos encompasses them all. We asked the question and said, how can the verse in the book of Numbers say that Shabbos is Yom Simchaschem, the day of your rejoicing? There's no mitzvah to rejoice on Shabbos. True. Is there a mitzvah for a bride to rejoice at her wedding? There's no mitzvah. Have you ever seen a bride who's not rejoicing at her wedding? If you did, there's a problem. Of course, why are they rejoicing? They don't need a mitzvah to rejoice. That's what's going on over here. This is the greatest moment. This is what you look forward to. So when it says that Shabbos is the day of our rejoicing, not because there's a mitzvah we're instructed to, it's the day of connecting with our Creator. It's the essence of all joy. What does it mean that God rested and was refreshed? God doesn't refresh. What does it mean he rested? So some say that it's referring to God's connection with us. In that respect, it's refreshing. But others say God rested. He created this rest, allowing us to have the oneg. He created this concept of Shabbos, this antibiotic, this bridge, this means of connection, and he expanded our souls. Ask me that. And the Neshama Yisera doesn't mean we get an extra soul on Shabbos, but the souls that we have expand. Have these drugs and your mind expands. You can understand things, okay? Well, our soul, why does God give us an expanded soul? To enable us to have a greater perception of the spiritual. Part of the gift. The world to come. Shabbos is a sample of the world to come, because what's going to happen in the world to come? We discussed this when we spoke about the soul. The world to come, the soul is engaged in an eternal bond and love and growth with God. What does that mean, growth? We leave this world with a certain knowledge of our Creator. When we come to the world to come, God gives us the opportunity to expand our knowledge of our Creator. And the more we know of God, the more we will love Him. And the more we want to connect. And it is eternal. God is referred to as the Ein Sof. There's no beginning, there's no end. It's circular. You know, one of the reasons why, where do you see circles at a Jewish wedding? When a bride goes around, why does she go around in circles? What's she going around? Circle. Circle of life. No, it's not. It's the endless circle, which is symbolic of God's presence. And where else do you have a circle? The ring. Ring on the finger. Circle. That's what we are representing. Let's take a look. Page 1059. 1059. There's a biblical mitzvah to get married. You know that? Biblical mitzvah to get married. Where is it? In Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 1. 1051.
If a man marries a woman and lives with her, and it will be that she will not find favor in his eyes.
Okay, stop. We don't have to go into the not find favor. But if a man marries a woman, you know what the Hebrew is? Who can see the Hebrew over there? The man marries a woman. In Hebrew, ki yikach ish isha. When a man literally takes a woman, takes her for what? Takes her as a wife. The man takes the woman. Because the Torah uses a language that the man does the taking, that's why the Jewish wedding, it's the man who gives the ring to the bride. If a bride gives a ring to the man and says, with this ring, I am marrying you, it could disqualify the wedding. Could disqualify. The Jewish wedding is the man giving the ring. Well, she wants to give him a ring. Fine. So what they'll do is that after they finish the official ceremony, she can give him a ring and say whatever she wants. But he does the quote taking. Now, obviously she must agree. There's no question about it. But he takes a wife. Let's go to page 319. God speaks to Moshe, tells him to go to the children of Israel, tell them, and God uses 4 expressions of redemption. What mitzvah do we have as a result of these 4 expressions of redemption? 4 cups of wine at the Seder. Very good. So what are they? So let's take a look at all 4. Let's start with verse 6.
Therefore, say to the children of Israel, I am Hashem, and I shall take you out from under the burdens of Egypt.
Number 1, I'm going to take you out.
I shall rescue you from their service.
Number 2, I'm going to rescue you.
I shall redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgment.
So the first 3, notice, are all in the one verse. I shall take you out, I shall rescue, I shall redeem. Now there's a 4th one which has its own verse.
I shall take you to me for a people, and I shall be a God to you. And you shall know that I am Hashem your God, who takes you out from under the burdens of Egypt.
I shall take you. The Hebrew, the lokachti eschem. Same expression. When a man takes a woman and his wife, it says the lokach. Here, when God's speaking to us, the lokach. He means I will do. Same thing. What does it mean when God says I will take you? It means the first 3 expressions, take you out, I'll rescue, redeem, they're in one verse. Then we come to the highest level. And that is the level which has its own separate verse. And I will take you unto me. That means God is saying there's going to be a bond of marriage. There's going to be an eternal bond of marriage. And should you think that I am just being poetic by using that phrase, so we must go to the book of Hosea, which you will find here in the Siddur. And I'll tell you what page it's on. when we put on our tefillin every morning, we say these verses. Page 9. Page 9. This is when the tefillin is being put on. So you see the paragraph where it says, wrap the strap around the middle finger and the hand according to your custom. And while doing this, wrapping the tefillin around the fingers like a ring. And what do we say? Go ahead.
I will betroth you to me forever, and I will betroth you to me with righteousness, justice, kindness, and mercy. I will betroth you to me with fidelity, and you shall know Hashem.
And this is it. You see number 2 on the bottom, Hosea chapter 2, 21 and 22. The prophet is telling us that God says, I'll betroth you forever. Forever. And notice there's no conditions over here. Doesn't say I will betroth you to me forever if on condition. Doesn't say that. Eternal. This is the tachlis of our existence. To sense this connection, to sense this feeling, to sense the element of love and this bond. And that's what Shabbos is. Shabbos enables us to do the gift of Shabbos. So when we speak about Oneg Shabbos, yes, we have Oneg Shabbos and we do eat and everything and whatever that is, but the ultimate Oneg Shabbos is in delighting in our connection, relationship, and marriage with our Creator, that we can sense on this day more than any other day in the year. All right, next week, God willing, we are going to continue a little bit with this theme, go a little bit deeper, believe it or not. And with that, we're going to conclude about the Shabbos, okay? I thank you all very much for coming out. Again, I apologize for the cold weather.